everyone, this is Mindy Eggen for Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine, and in today's video I'm going to show you an easy way to mass produce your Christmas cards this year. I am going to be using a specialty product, but you can create so many cards with this product, and I'm going to show you some other things that you can do to help step them up even further. The product that I'm going to be using today is the Create in Quads Stencils from Tailored Expressions. The one I have here is Deck the Halls, but they do have many others available. What makes these so amazing for mass producing cards is that you can create 4 panels at once. So this particular stencil, there are 4 layers to create 4 different panels. They are going to be labeled in the bottom right-hand corner to let you know stencil 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I'm going to be just using the stencil today to create my panels, but Tailored Expressions does also offer foil-it panels, and this is the Deck the Halls set. What these are toner printed designs on these panels, and they will fit perfectly behind each of the design. All you would need is either a laminator or your mini Mink or your fuse foiling machine. And then, of course, you also need your foil that you would use for your toner printed designs like this. So this is a great way to add some sparkle and shine and also all these little details to your panels if you choose to. Now, if you're not ready to jump into foiling, there is also a Deck the Halls clear stamp set that you can pick up as well. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can line up your stencil. In the corners or all the way around to the edges, you're going to see this etched line. You can use that, or you can use the registration marks, the little squares along the edge to line up your stencil. I am taking a piece of cardstock cut to 8 by 10.5. I looped up some teal tape on the back, and I'm going to secure this down to my work surface. That way my paper won't move around when I start blending. Now I'm going to be working in the landscape orientation just so it's easier to fit everything on camera, and I'm going to use that etched line to line that up with my cardstock. If you have scratch paper underneath, you can mark off those squares or those registration marks to line up your stencil, but I'm just going to use the etched line for right now. I also went ahead and held down my stencil with some teal tape. Now I have a super fun color combination for you, and I'm going to be using Cherry Pop, Rose Water, Confetti Cake, and Poblano Pepper from Tailored Expressions. I have stencil 1 in place, and I'm going to start with my lightest color, which is Rose Water. I'm going to make sure that I'm blending in a circular motion, and I'm also going left to right and right to left to make sure I'm getting complete coverage in all of the open areas of the stencil. Now, there are lots of ways to step up your blending. I'm going to keep this just very simple for you and just do 1 color per stencil. But of course, you could do numerous colors on each stencil layer. It's totally up to you. So I finished the first stencil, removed that, and I'm placing over the second layer of the stencil using that etched line that's going around the cardstock, and also just kind of visually lining it up with the images that I have there. Now I'm coming in with Cherry Pop ink. Of course, you can see this is a really nice bright red compared to that light rose water that I previously used. Once again, I'm using my blending brush and just making sure to cover all of those open areas of the stencil. Once I have that all filled in, I can remove this, and I'm going to bring in the third layer of the stencil. Now for each time too, to make sure I'm in the right direction, I am always putting the etched detail, which is going to tell me stencil layer 1, 2, or 3. I always make sure that's in the top right corner, just as kind of my reference. Now my third color here is going to be Confetti Cake, but it is in a serious need of re-inking and I don't have a re-inker. So I had to change gears a little bit, and I brought in Tide Pool from Concord and Ninth. This was pretty close to Confetti Cake. It's going to look a little dark right now, and it is just a little bit darker than Confetti Cake, but once they dry back, it is going to lighten up just a little bit. So I went through this entire layer with the Tide Pool ink, remove my teal tape, and wow, I was so excited when I removed that stencil and seen how great this color combination was looking. Then the last color I'm going to use for the last layer of the stencil is Poblano Pepper. Tongue-tied there for a second. So this is the last layer. I'm going to use that color all across the entire stencil. Once I have this done, I can remove it, and I was so happy with how this color combination turned out. So as I remove this last layer, you can see how you can just cut these down into panels and add them right to card fronts. You don't even need to do anything else to them, which makes the card making super quick and easy. I'll bring in my paper trimmer and I will trim these out. So the first cut I'm going to make is going to be at 5 1/4. And my second cut is going to be at 4 inches. Because remember, I started out with a sheet of cardstock that was 8 by 10 1/2. So by starting out with that size, it's going to make trimming these panels down really easy and they are ready to go. Now, if you want to change up your color combinations, all you would need to do is clean off your stencils. I like to use rubbing alcohol, but you could also rinse them off with some warm soap and water, clean them up, and ready to work on your next batch. I am going to step mine up just a little bit and I'm bringing in an additional product. So these are cover plates that are meant to line up over your stenciled image and you can trim out all of those designs. So just think instead of 4 panels, you could use a couple stars on one, some bells on another, and come up with a ton of more cards than just 4 panels. Or trim these out and use them on your Christmas tags. What I want to do is add actual cover panels over my images, and I'm going to use the same colors of cardstock that I used for my inks. Now, I had to keep in mind that I switched my ink from Confetti Cake to Tide Pool, so I used Tide Pool cardstock, and I just love how all of these match so well. So after I have my panels all die cut out, I'm going to do some stamping. I'm bringing in my Misty and I removed the foam insert and I'm going to use the Twinkle Twinkle background. This is a red rubber stamp, so it's already foam mounted. I'm going to take it and place it onto the grid paper that I have in my Misty, pick that up with the door of the Misty, and then what I'll do, which I found super helpful, was I'm going to take just a light colored ink, any ink will work here, and I'm going to stamp this down onto that grid paper that I have in the bottom of my Misty. This is going to tell me exactly where my stamp is. Now, instead of taping my panels to that grid paper, I'm going to bring in a Misty, this is a My Sweet Petunia sticky mat, so I can see through to the stamped image on that grid paper, but it's a sticky mat, so it's going to hold my cardstock in place so it doesn't shift. I placed the cardstock or my die cut panel inside of the stamped area. So now I know that it is going to be covered perfectly with my stamp. This is the Tide Pool die cut panel, so I'm going to stamp with Tide Pool ink. And this is going to add just some subtle interest to my panel. I could certainly leave it just plain cardstock, but I thought this design was just a really pretty sparkly background, kind of goes with twinkles and sparkles at Christmas time, which makes me really happy. Now to remove it, you just bend this sticky panel in half a little bit and your cardstock will pop right off. Then I just take a stamp chamois or something like that you clean your stamps, and I wipe my mat clean, and then I can work on the rest of the panels. So here I have the poblano pepper, I got it right this time, and I'm going to stamp it in the same color ink. So I am cleaning my stamp off in between each one as well. Stamp that down, and I love how my sticky mat is there so that if my cardstock does shift, or maybe I didn't push down good enough, I can go back and stamp it again. Then I can remove this panel, make sure to clean off that sticky mat, and I'm going to bring in the Cherry Pop cardstock and stamp that in Cherry Pop ink. Now you may notice that I don't have the stockings on here just yet, and I wasn't actually sure at this point what I was going to do with the stockings. I didn't want to do any stamping as far as the strings and the garland to hang them from, so I was kind of tinkering around with that idea. I decided since I had everything out, I brought in some toffee cardstock, which is like a craft colored cardstock, and I'm going to ink up this background in sugar cube ink or a white pigment ink. That's kind of a nice go-to for me when I'm just really not sure what I'm going to do just yet. Now, since I have my Misty out and I'm working on some stamping, I'm going to go ahead and do my sentiments right away. This is the Jingle All the Way stamp sets. Once again, these are red rubber stamps and already foam mounted, so you don't need the foam insert in your Misty. I'm going to stamp out a few of them, more than I really need, just because I wasn't sure what was going to fit on the front of my card fronts just yet. I have some white cardstock that I have in the bottom of the Misty there, and I'm going to ink up and stamp these sentiments in Oreo ink, or just a really nice black ink. You could also do colored ink to match the colors of your cards that we just did. There is a coordinating die set for this, which I am super excited about. So I'm going to line up the coordinating dies, hold them down with a low tack tape, die cut them out, and I'm also going to die cut out about 2 more for each one because I'm going to layer them up with liquid glue to make the dimension instead of using any foam squares or foam tape. Now I'm going to start assembling my card. Now, actually, I would probably personally pop these panels up because I love dimension and I think they would make really cute shaker cards. But for simplicity purposes, because we want to get out a lot of Christmas cards and just do the mass producing, I'm just going to use a tape runner behind each of the die cut panels, line it up with the images, and push down to secure that tape. You could also use some liquid glue here too. Either way will work, whatever you like to use to secure your cardstock down. So I will do that for each one of the panels. And on some of the panels, I did have a little bit of white cardstock that stuck out from the sides. I wasn't going to worry about that right now. I really just wanted to make sure that my images were lining up with that die cut panel. So I will bring these over to my paper trimmer, or you can use your scissors and just trim off that little bit of white that might be sticking out. Now these panels, which are 4 by 5 1/4, would look really great on white card bases, but I was loving this color scheme so much that I went back and grabbed some more panels cut from those same colors of cardstock, and I just altered between them. So my Tide Pool cardstock has Cherry Pop for a background and just went through those different colors, and I thought that really just kind of brought this whole color scheme together. Then I brought in my sentiments and was just getting an idea what was going to fit where, kind of played around with some positions on them. Once I have that figured out, I am going to pop up these panels with some foam tape. Again, totally optional. If you're looking to just hammer out a ton of cards, you could skip the foam tape. That would also limit you when you are mailing. I don't know if these would be extra postage. So if you're looking to kind of not run into that mess, you could skip the foam tape. So after I have the backing removed and place those over my card front panels, which are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, I can then go ahead and glue down my sentiments. I'm just going to be using my tweezers and some liquid glue, and then I'll place something heavy like a clear block over the top of it to let that sit and really adhere down to the card front. And as I was doing this, I was still thinking about my stockings in the back of my head, trying to figure out what I was going to do. The stockings I think would look really, really cute on tags. I did decide to go and die cut them out with the coordinating die. So what I'll do is add foam squares behind my stockings, and I decided to go for kind of a grid style look on the front of my card. I am using that background where I did the white pigment ink on toffee cardstock. Once again, I added foam tape to the back of it, and then I'm going to remove the backing of the foam squares with my stockings, and I'm going to place them on the front of the card. For right now, I have them just placed there, and I'm going to start with the sentiment at the bottom. I thought it would be easiest to work with this grid style, going off of the sentiment and making sure that that was centered. Then I could remove those backings and attach this. And I love this grid style format for card fronts. Now, I didn't do any bling or any other splattering extra things that I like to do to my Christmas cards, but you certainly could add some sparkles, some gems. If you wanted to keep it simple and just hammer out a bunch of cards, the quad stencils are definitely the way to go. You could leave them as is, or you can dress them up, just depending on what you want to do with your cards this year. So I hope this video has inspired you into mass producing your Christmas cards this year if you like to make a lot of Christmas cards or make into some Christmas tags. Thank you so much for joining me today.